Little Rock, Arkansas is a respectably progressive southern state. Crisis erupted, however, when the governor of Arkansas on September 4th prevented the entry of 9 African-American students who had sued for their right to attend an integrated school, Little Rock Central High School. On the first day of school, only one of the 9 students showed up because she had not received a phone call about the danger of going to school. She was harassed by white protesters outside the school, and the police had to take her away in a patrol car in order to protect her. Dwight D. Eisenhower was determined to enforce the orders of the federal court. Critics have charged he was lukewarm, at best, on the goal of desegregating public schools. Eisenhower federalized the National Guard and ordered them to return to their barracks. Eisenhower then deployed elements of the 101st Airborne Division to Little Rock to protect the students. Only one of the 9 students, Ernest Green, got the chance to graduate. After that, the school was shut down instead of integrating later. The civil rights movement received an infusion of energy with the students sitting at Woolworth Store in Greensboro, North Carolina. On February 1st, 1960, 4 students sat down at a segregated lunch counter to protest Woolworth's policy of excluding African Americans. The 4 students purchased small items in other parts of the store and kept their receipts, then sat down at the lunch counter and asked to be served. After being denied service, they produced their receipts and asked why their money was good everywhere else in the store, but not at the lunch counter. This hidden technique was not new. It started as far back as 1939 by Samuel Tucker. It was not completely utilized, though, until 1960. There are a few people involved in the civil rights movement you cannot fail to mention. One of these people is Martin Luther King Jr. A Baptist minister, King became a civil rights activist early in his career. He led the 1955 Montgomery bus boycott and helped found the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in 1957, serving as its first president. With the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, King led an unsuccessful struggle against segregation in Albany, Georgia in 1962, organized nonviolent protests in Birmingham, Alabama, that attracted national attention following television news coverage of the brutal police response. King also helped organize the 1963 March on Washington, where he delivered his infamous Why Have a Dream speech. There he established his reputation as one of the greatest orators in American history. On October 14, 1964, King received the Nobel Peace Prize for combating radical inequality through nonviolence. However, unlike Martin Luther King Jr., there were some people that advocated for violence instead of nonviolence. One of these people was Malcolm X. Malcolm X, born Malcolm Little, was an African-American Muslim minister and human rights activist. To his admirers, he was a courageous advocate for the rights of blacks, men who indicted white America in the harshest terms for its crimes against black Americans. The reason for Malcolm's violent preachings is because of his past. Malcolm X's father died killed by white supremacists when he was young, and at least one of his uncles was lynched. When he was 13, his mother was placed in a mental hospital, and he was placed in a series of foster homes. In 1946, at age 20, he went to prison for breaking and entering. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X had arguments over whose methods would be adopted by the black community as a way of protesting against the white supremacists. Overall, Martin Luther King won over more people because of his supreme speech-making over Malcolm X's. The official end to the civil rights movement occurred when Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This act banned the discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin in the employment practices and public accommodations. The bill authorized the Attorney General to file lawsuits to enforce the new law. The law also nullified state and local laws that require such discriminations.
Question is, what do you believe is the most important event involving the civil rights movement and why?
I guess you start with Rosa Parks. I mean, that was kind of the spark that got sort of national attention, brought the nation in. I guess, then you have to definitely go to the March on Washington. And August of '63, in which, you know, that was such a high-profile event. And then, of course, later that day, Kennedy welcomed all the leaders to the White House, and it just seemed like there was so much more acceptance because of that. So those would be the two, and you know, and the why would be just that it made it such a public issue, and more people jumped on board and started realizing this is wrong. We have to fix things.
How did the civil rights movement affect society today?
Well, the Voting Rights Act of '64 obviously ended all the limitations on African Americans voting, so that would be one big thing. I think the affirmative action that kind of came out of the Civil Rights movement of the '60s would have opened up a lot of jobs and careers. I think maybe the biggest thing is just public acceptance. I'm kind of dovetailing on my last answer, but you know, as these things became more in the public eye, people had no problem with seeing African Americans taking any job, you know, getting into government, being part of government, and I'm hoping we have a more accepting and open society than we once did.
Why do you think Martin Luther King Jr.'s tactics won over more people than Malcolm X's tactics?
Well, I think Malcolm X did win over some people, but at the time, Martin Luther King had the charisma. If you've ever heard the speeches, and I'm sure the illustrious Mr. Tobin has provided you with plenty of visuals and audios of Martin Luther King, but he had the charisma. The man could deliver a speech. And of course, you know, he's following Thoreau and Gandhi and the whole nonviolence thing, and you know, you also had the peace movement at the time, so that all kind of worked together, and for a good decade, you know, I think King's ideas dominated. Now there was, and it's largely forgotten, especially, you know, we celebrate Dr. King so much, but there was an undercurrent of the violence going on. And it wasn't just Malcolm X, there were others, H. Rap Brown, Stokely Carmichael. They were calling for war. And, you know, King, while he was alive, he definitely dominated. Of course, the saddest tribute to King is when he died, look what happened in the cities. The race riots and everything just exploded. But he had the background, he had the history. He was in, what was it, the Montgomery boycott, the bus boycott?
Yeah, he was.
After the Rosa Parks thing. So, you know, King had the pedigree with the speaking ability, the charisma, the background. How long he could have kept that going, I don't know.